Chinese people are calling today the garbage time of history. But despite all the trash, the Chinese Communist Party only smells the overpowering musk of its messiah-in-chief. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. I have some exciting news. We're at nearly 2 million subscribers. Only about 40,000 more to go. So if you're watching and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button now. When we get to 2 million, we'll do a special live stream for you where we'll do something we've never done before. So again, hit that subscribe button. And now, on with the show. Did you know that Chinese leader Xi Jinping is awesome? Don't believe me? Just ask one of the millions who are compelled to say yes. Since 2013, Xi has been the core of the Chinese Communist Party. According to state-controlled media, he has unified and led the whole party and the people of all ethnic groups with great political courage and wisdom. And did you know Xi was also behind all of the 2,000 reforms that have been rolled out over the past decade, addressing such things as poverty, development, and corruption? And surely poverty and corruption hasn't gotten worse since those reforms were rolled out. I mean, that'd be crazy. But that's not all that makes him amazing. Back in the old days, he would carry more than 200 pounds of wheat over his shoulder for approximately 3 miles on a mountain road without switching sides. When a group of Taiwanese strongmen later tried to replicate that feat, they obviously failed because, again, they're not Xi, and Xi is awesome. So with a superhero like Xi at the helm, it's no wonder that China is currently undergoing an economic miracle. And that miracle looks set to continue, unlike other lazy miracles that just happen once and are gone. At least, that was the narrative that China's major state media were trying to push during a pivotal meeting earlier this month held by the CCP. The meeting is also known as the Third Plenum. It's held every 5 years to set the direction for China's social and economic policies. And as you can tell from, well, everything, the direction of China's social and economic policies has been set to, oh God, no, why would anyone do that? But they had a chance to correct the course. Instead, this year's plenum ended without major policy announcements, with a lot of focus instead on praising Xi. But this may surprise you. That sentiment is far from universally shared among Chinese people. In fact, public criticism erupted online over these boisterous claims to such a point that a state-run media piece celebrating Xi, titled "Xi the Reformer," seemingly had to be taken down. Man, and I thought my fan fiction got bad reviews. And if you're wondering, it was about Gilmore Girls and how Rory should have wound up with Marty. Around the same time, new discussions multiplied across Chinese social media platforms about how China has entered the garbage time of Chinese history. The term garbage time is believed to have been borrowed from the world of sports, or can refer to the period at the end of a game when one team is blowing out the other with there being little chance for any sort of comeback for the losing side. The Chinese garbage time idea revolves around whether China has entered a period of economic stagnation or regression in which a blowout is all but inevitable. The conclusion being that China's workers and investors have little chance of a comeback and might as well give up. So, following the Third Plenum, there were two very different outlooks at play, with online discussions about China's new garbage era on the one hand, and state media stories about miracle maker Xi on the other. It makes sense because in the Xi Jinping era, spreading positive energy about China is one of the requirements for Chinese media. They have to tell China's story well, because positive stories casting off positive energy puts the Communist Party and the Chinese government in a positive light. And just look how positively it's affecting the Chinese people. So, surprise, surprise, there's a huge disconnect between what state media is saying and, reality. Today I learned the dog from that meme is apparently an employee of Chinese media. If we look at the actual economic situation in China instead, it makes sense why some Chinese people think the current situation is garbage. China's massive housing crisis is now in its 4th year. Its stock market is struggling, youth unemployment is high, and official economic growth numbers in the past quarter were disappointing to say the least. And that's all based on the official reported numbers, which are not known for their accuracy. The only miracle is how they're able to botch so many things so badly all at once. So yeah, things are bad. And as the Chinese economy stumbles, so has the confidence and optimism of the Chinese people. consumer spending has fallen, with people in China today preferring to repay debt and buy wealth management products as they prepare for worse economic times. It's not just the numbers telling this dismal story of China's economic situation. In recent years, a popular trend has been spreading online where Chinese people share how they went on vacation as cheaply as possible. Tips for cheap vacationing include things like low-cost eating and sleeping in 24/7 restaurants instead of paying for hotels. Because nothing says relaxing getaway like sleeping in a Denny's and hoping drunks at 2 a.m. don't puke on you. But at the same time, there's also been even more dire signs of China's economic decline. Last month, a state council audit revealed that dozens of local governments used the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars meant for rural school meal subsidies to instead settle government debt. Look, I'm not a fan of any corruption, but if you're gonna steal, couldn't you have done it from literally anywhere besides money for poor, hungry school kids, you Oliver Twist villains? And in some provinces, the economic situation is so bad these days that local officials have launched financial raids into other provinces to secure funding in a maneuver known as fishing the high seas. Adding all this together, China does sound closer to economic garbage times than economic miracle times. But given that Chinese media are firmly in the clutches of the CCP, it's no surprise that there has been a lack of news stories diving into the sentiment behind the garbage time phrase. Instead, plenty of state media and influential commentators have rallied against the use of the concept. Earlier this month, a finance professor at Renmin University called the concept of garbage time of China's history a falsification of academic concepts, which is just a pretentious way of saying, "Nuh-uh, your face is garbage time." Beijing Daily called it a false proposition not worth refuting before launching into a 3,000-character piece trying to refute the proposition. Because if something's not worth doing, it's worth doing well. In a separate commentary, Beijing Daily called garbage time a catchphrase insinuating that there's no help and no hope, denying and downplaying everything in China. One public figure called the idea of an era of garbage time dangerous because of its implicit message of hopelessness. Yes, because it's solely the idea of a garbage time that's spreading hopelessness and not, the reality of living under a brutal authoritarian regime. Since then, posts and comments about garbage time that do not refute the idea have been removed from Chinese social media platforms by censors, which simultaneously means that no one in China feels that way anymore, and they never did, ever, not even a little bit. But this reaction from the authorities is not unexpected. Xi Jinping has for years called on Chinese people to struggle and embrace hardship. If Chinese people instead choose to settle for less or even give up in the face of bad times, then Xi's own vision of rejuvenating the Chinese nation will look bleak. Yeah, that's what's going to make China under Xi look bleak. Harvesting organs, putting racial minorities in camps, and using rape as a form of torture, that's just sunshine and lollipops. So the CCP tries to get everyone to stop focusing on the trash and start smelling the roses. Unfortunately for Beijing, new evidence suggests that Chinese people are no longer as receptive to positive stories about economic miracles as they might have been in the past. In a recent study published in a summary by the U.S. think tank, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, researchers found that over the last 2 decades, Chinese people have generally stopped believing that the economic system works for them. Based on nationwide surveys conducted across China, the study showed that in 2004, people often attributed personal poverty to a lack of ability or a lack of effort on the part of individuals, while factors such as unequal opportunities or unfair economic system were ranked much lower. But since 2023, that picture has been flipped on its head, with people increasingly viewing unequal opportunities and an unfair economic system as the primary reasons behind poverty among Chinese people. And where people used to see ability, talent, and education as the top factors determining why people are rich, today people see connections and a rich family playing a bigger role. When asked whether a person becoming rich or remaining poor was a personal responsibility, 49% said yes in 2004, but only 27% said yes in 2023. And this sort of sentiment doesn't seem to be restricted to China's economic system. Last year, a honeymoon in Tibet turned into a nightmare when the bride, 27-year-old Yu Yanyan was badly injured in a car crash. Bleeding out and confined to a remote area of Tibet, it looked like Yu wasn't going to make it. But thanks to a surge of blood donations from members of the local Tibetan community and the arrangement of a chartered plane to Shanghai, Yu got the necessary care she needed and eventually made a full recovery. It's an uplifting story about a collective effort to save a young woman's life, right? Sure. If you're a rich pig, on Chinese social media, many reactions were quite gloomy, with some arguing that Yu had to have been either rich or well connected to receive such care. Some people even became upset, suspecting that her life had only been saved because of an abuse of power, and that ordinary Chinese patients would never have received a similar treatment. They began referring to her as Sister Blood Points, as a reference to the health bar in video games, and disturbing AI-generated pictures like these were posted of her online, though I get calling any AI pictures disturbing is kind of redundant. Around the same time as the rescue of Yu, another miracle story about beating the odds went viral on Chinese social media and was met with just as much cynicism. A lottery player in the central Chinese city of Nanchang reportedly won the equivalent of almost $31 million from the state-run welfare lottery by making a bunch of small, identical lottery bets. The many small bets resulted in the player not having to pay taxes on his winnings. This immediately raised suspicion of foul play, which, to be fair, is the only type of play when it comes to the CCP. One user on the Chinese social media platform Weibo said that the lottery player probably had some help from someone on the inside. Just when tales of public distrust in China couldn't get any more disheartening, it was reported that the authorities have struggled to raise donations from the public for relief efforts in the aftermath of the many floods that have struck the country this summer due to an erosion of public trust. If Chinese people have such little faith in the authorities that they don't even trust them to properly manage charity donations, times do indeed sound bad. And then it doesn't exactly strike a convincing note when they hear from Chinese state-run media that they're supposed to accept as the core the leader of those very same authorities, the guy who's dishing out struggle and hardship to a people already toiling through bad economic times, and expecting them to embrace the hardship. If that doesn't sound like garbage times, I don't know what does. Now, talking about the garbage times is why Chinese state-run media has called China Uncensored disgraceful anti-China garbage. But I need your help to keep piling it on. Join what I call the China Uncensored 50-cent army and help make this show possible by contributing on patreon.com/China Uncensored. As a thank you, I'll respond to your questions and comments. Today's question comes from Skywise001. Weird, I got the notice and instead of the video, it showed a content warning. Yeah, YouTube is doing all kinds of weird things to us. A lot of people struggle to find the show in the search menu. People aren't getting notified of new episodes. People are even being secretly unsubscribed. I'm sure the show would easily have reached 2 million subscribers by now if it weren't for whatever was going on the back end. That's why I'm working on a project right now that should hopefully get around all of YouTube's shenanigans. I'll let you know more about that when it's time to drop. Thanks for letting me know, Skywise. Click that orange button to join my China Uncensored 50-cent army on Patreon. And if you want to know more about how communists take over a society, and especially the role of useful idiots, check out this video from my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming, where I hide from YouTube's censorship bots controversial conversations in gaming content. This one is about how the blue creatures from Avatar are actually dirty reds. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.